Abroad Pod with James Davis.
Hello, listener. Happy New Year, and thank you so much for joining us on the Teaching Abroad Pod, coming at you on January 12th of 2022. I'm your host, James Davis, and with me this week is my co-host, Alex, from the Oxford Seminars Job Placement Service. Hey, Alex, how's it going?
Good, James. New year, new you, new me, new everyone. How are you feeling? Do you have any resolutions?
Oh, feeling great. Feeling, like you said, totally new person.
Yeah.
In this Groundhog Day life we have going on.
Yeah.
But resolutions, yes, I am going to hopefully read a bit more in 2022. I've just been watching a really good show called Station 11 from HBO. And as soon as I finish watching it, I really want to read that. So hopefully that will kickstart me into 2022. How about you?
Yeah. It's going to sound kind of trite, but I was thinking just to try to stay positive will be my personal goal amidst all the doom and gloom and COVID blues news that seems endless. I'll try to keep a positive perspective, and maybe that's the most I can do. But what kind of books do you like to read other than that? Do you mostly read genre stuff?
No, I'm kind of a big history nerd.
Oh.
So I really need to get through. I've been reading The Great War for Civilization by Robert Fisk.
Oh, wow.
It's a hefty one, but It's really good. And I really need to finish as well. I'm kind of halfway through Rubicon, which is about Julius Caesar returning to Rome. So mostly nerdy history stuff. I'm going to blame my dad for that. So thank you. Good. Do you have any ways that you're going to stay positive, Alex? Are you going to...
So far, my main strategy has been not listening and watching to all the news, sort of like not scrolling all day through a really negative news feed. So I think just putting a cutoff on how much I expose myself to the negativity seems to be a pretty good strategy. So I'll probably just try to ramp that up and maybe just listen to more music or something.
Good idea. Speaking of positive people, we have Brian McGugan coming back on the podcast today. He is, great ball of energy and positivity, and he's wonderful. So hopefully he will give you all some tips about that too. But before we get to that interview with Brian, here is a word from our sponsors.
With Oxford Seminars, starting your new career teaching ESL couldn't be easier. Oxford Seminars has trained more than 70,000 teachers over the past 20 years, and you could be next. Their comprehensive 120-hour program starts with live instruction from an experienced ESL teacher, followed by convenient online modules. If your goal is to relocate overseas or even teach from the comfort of your own home, Oxford Seminars' renowned lifetime job placement service will get you where you want to be. You can call 1-800-779-1779 or visit oxfordseminars.com today to find out more.
And it is my great pleasure to welcome back Brian Knox McGugan to the podcast. As we mentioned before, Brian holds a Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree in acting from the University of Alberta, has over 35 years experience working in film, theatre and TV. Brian completed the Oxford Seminars course in Vancouver back in 2018 and has somewhat recently relocated to Thailand, where he's been busy putting together his teacher training in the classroom and online. So, Brian, welcome back to the podcast. How's everything going?
Thanks for having me. How's it going? Oh, it's exciting at every moment, I must say. Living in the unknown every day. My major asset for remaining grounded is to practice meditation every day, and meditation and chanting. So I find that the panic I feel when I wake up with is gone by the time I practice. So.
And Brian, recently you wrote a fantastic blog for Oxford Seminars, kind of chronicling your whole journey and how you eventually ended up in Thailand, some of the personal and professional motivations to make this kind of move. With the new year, it's been a year now for you. How do you look back on that whole decision now?
Oh, I think, although I sometimes think, what am I doing? am I insane? Am I mad? But on the other hand, with a little perspective, I realize that the main point is to try and follow my new sort of truth, whatever that is. I may not fully know what that is yet. So so it was a great decision. And I know that what I tried to do in the blog, without getting too dark, I wanted to show some of the struggles I'd had over the last 5 years, and kind of how this was a springboard to do something. One of my biggest problems is resistance and sort of procrastination. So and I feel it every day, all the time. I'm constantly having to work against that. So this has given me an opportunity to really have some of those truths about myself shared with myself really clearly. And I mean, I like it, but it means I have to work in a certain way in order to move forward. And being out here is pretty amazing. I mean, it's a lot of frustrations. My Thai sucks a lot of the time. I'm going, I should be so much better. And I worry that I'm not working hard enough. I worry that I can't sustain myself. But you know what? I am doing it. So I just have to keep reminding myself that, gradually, little bit by little bit, it's happening. I was really excited, I have to tell you, that I actually got my first, it sounds like nothing, but I got my first actual Thai or private student from Thailand about a month ago, just from a post I put up on a Facebook group. And now I have that one student. I have, I think, 7 Canadian students and one student from Thailand, which is really what I want, is to teach Thai people. He's actually from Taiwan and he lives in Bangkok. Actually, I think he lives within walking distance from me, but everything's online anyways. But so I'm very proud of that. And I've got reams of material now from my last year of teaching privately. I'm starting to kind of get a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't.
Just speaking about teaching online, do you have any tips or tricks that you've picked up, since a lot of people are curious about it and they're unsure about whether they're going to be able to do it well? What have you learned so far?
Geez, I don't have a balanced view at all, because I only have a little bit of experience in real life before the pandemic hit. So the vast quantity of my teaching has been with Zoom, right? So so this is an area I need to know more about. I love the Oxford Seminars rule of 80%, 20%. I know that I probably don't do that. I talk way too much, but then I sort of catch myself and go, okay, they got to talk more. So I'll just let them talk. And so I try to get the students to talk more. I might throw things in if I find something that makes sense to kind of cross-reference when I'm doing a lesson. Generally, I have a pretty well set format. I do a warm-up, I do a poem. I'll do some exercises about what sounds they have challenges with. I try to also, at the same time, I will use some acting stuff all the time. So rather than just reading a kind of, for example, if you're doing a TH sound poem or exercise, rather than just doing it like a TH sound, I'll throw in, pretend you're an announcer for a golf game. You know how somehow golf, the announcers, they talk like this. So now you're going to be, golf. So use some like overacting or whatever. Try to be silly, or maybe do a hard sell furniture commercial. Like, hey, this kind of thing. Just try throwing stuff at them as they're doing the exercises. Try if they can do characters and whatnot. And that's one of the tips I'd share, is just to try and keep it fun. So, I mean, for me, if I can get them to pretend you're this actor, or even as we're doing the scene at the very end part of my classes, usually we'll watch a little scene, for example, from Blade Runner. And then I really will encourage them to literally imitate one of the actors, or try and imitate the energy, especially of the rhythm and the sounds, and just the acting, everything. So trying to get them to like act in the scene, right? And it seems to make all the difference. And then you're not just doing a thing on Zoom anymore. Hopefully you're like doing a little film.
Do you
So
find that that helps your students to relax a bit because they're not so wrapped up in the language and thinking mechanically? They're just kind of going with.
that's right. I mean, so I'm going back to like, I might do an exercise a bit, but then I'll say, okay, now let's go back to just talk to me again. Okay, just like the last time you did it, it sounded really like you're working way too hard, which is great, good for you. Now, can you actually just go? Can you actually intend to communicate that to me? So there's this idea of which is what you mean in communication is to intend something, right? What do you want? And that's the same as acting.
So in addition to the online tutoring, last time you were on the podcast, you talked about preparing students for a Martin Luther King speech contest back in March. And what other activities have you been involved with since then, basically?
We did, there was a couple of cool things that happened. One of which was the International Red Cross had a what's called a moot court competition, and in conjunction with Srinkara University and Chulalongkorn University, students of international law could sort of in English practice their moot court skills. So I was able to actually coach them with their dialogue and coach them with their English skills. Basically, it's as if they're a practicing lawyer in a sort of international court of law, arguing about a case where a country had violated the standards of international law. So a lot of international law terms were involved, and we were talking about, it's a bit like a debate. So whether they win the argument or not about defending, being the defense or being the prosecution. So in this case, I got to tutor or coach three applicants to be in that competition. They never made it to finals, but they made it far enough. So they did really well. And another exciting event was my partner here he's involved a lot in stuff with the American Embassy here in Thailand, and also his organization, which is about American studies in Thailand. And so we were invited to a kind of what you would call a fireside chat, which was actually a press conference, but the embassy wanted it to be seeming to be more casual in the sense of they'd had the charge d'affaires as if it's a less formal environment. And he was just answering questions to the media about America's current position about foreign policy. And so I coached Pete to speak in English because he can go away in Thai like crazy, but to do this in English is another matter. To make it more sort of authentic and real, I worked with him on the questions and also practicing speaking in English, and he did that with a charge d'affaires, and it was really, really cool. So I think the American Embassy was really happy about that. So I was really proud to have the opportunity to be back in the behind the scenes and sort of to influence a kind of a wonderful, exciting conversational English, and also to get to go to there and watch it. It was really interesting. I got to meet the guy and all these things. So exciting moments, and it's all about the new, of course, the new government, the Joe Biden government is trying to sort of revitalize globalization and this sort of previous commitment America has to democracy and that sort of thing. And it's really quite an interesting incentive. And it was cool to be a part of that.
I think it's important that people realize that, teaching abroad throws up all these different things that you could just not have imagined doing. Most people would assume that you're just stuck in a classroom, but there's always something different to be done. If you're open to it, there's all these little projects. I think one of the ones from the blog was, were you working with the police?
Oh, yeah. But that was before the pandemic. But yes, I'm very proud of that. We'd like to do that again, actually, possibly. They were just it's literally over there by 3 blocks. I could walk there in 4 minutes. The Banrak Police Department, and we sort of arranged this volunteer class for them where I would just teach about 30 of them for a couple of hours. And I came up with, this is when I was just really inexperienced, and I came up with this whole lesson plan about policing, ESL for policing, right? And within about 10 minutes, it was like, throw that out the window. That's not working at all. As they were like, not one word of English, right? They could not speak any English pretty well at all. So I was going, okay, this is just not working. So what can we do? So in the end, we ended up just like basically going back to, I'm an actor, let's just do improv. So we just basically created little scenes, and they could use as much English as they had available, and I could play different characters. We had 7 students as assistants from Suriname University who could help translate English into Thai, which really helped a lot, of course. And so, we just quickly came up with scenes. One, I became a drunken farang, in Khao Sung Road. This one, they tried their best to like calm me down or whatever. I don't know. So yeah, so they really they perked up and they loved that. I don't know how much English they got, but they got to try a bit. And I sure learned about teaching beginners. It's pretty hard, right?
I was going to say, it's funny that you said that you struggle with motivation. It sounds like you've been involved with quite a few projects, and even since we last talked to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot, but actually on a daily basis, I really have to make sure I'm activated. I tend to switch off, and I need to make sure I'm like actually productive and activated. But yeah, so that was a wonderful project, and we want to do more like that. Other stuff I've been doing is, for example, I don't know if I told you, but I did a bit volunteer work for Food for Fighters. Basically, back to being an actor again. I just used my kind of announcer skills, and we did a couple of recordings for media in English about the need to help Food for Fighters because they were getting food out to people, especially Klung Toi, where the COVID outbreak was really bad, and they were really stuck and they couldn't get any food. So Food for Fighters was busy like getting the meals every day, like 5,000 a day. Like amazing work. And the other thing that's come up is I'm hoping to do some voice work. I'm not sure if I have the right gear, but I talked to a guy here who does a lot of radio in Thailand in English. So it occurs to me, I've listened to some of the English speaking stations, and I think the news, especially the people who read the news, it's very weird and strange. I'd like to contribute if I could. It's just the sort of emphasis and sounds. It's just strangely I can't explain it, but foreign. It doesn't make sense in terms of English. I'd love to if I could help. So anyway, I reached out to someone. I had a Zoom meeting with him yesterday. So we'll see.
So is that something that you're always kind of keeping your eye on, trying to keep your foot in both arenas, I guess? So the acting is never going away, right? Like,
no, I don't think it'll ever go away. I mean, actors never retire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to actually not have to worry about acting right now. And actually, one thing I did also was I joined in with the Bangkok Community Theater. Of course, it was all with Zoom, so I had never actually met any of these people. But every week we would read another play. So we read all sorts of plays over the period of last year, maybe about 10.
Oh, wow.
Every Tuesday night. Yeah, Tuesday night for a couple of hours, just for ourselves and maybe a couple of other listeners. But there's a way to keep that sort of those tools going, right?
Bangkok's such a big hub for tourism and teaching. Have you met? I mean, despite the pandemic, have you been able to meet some other teachers or made Thai friends?
One or two. I mean, much fewer than I would have imagined, and I think that's because of the pandemic. We really have kind of isolated in our room a lot. But I have, and I know there's opportunities coming up. For example, the opportunity at Suriname International College. I'm really excited about it. I'm not sure how well I'm going to do, but I'm jumping in with 2 feet. It's actually not teaching English. It's actually teaching what's called intercultural communication in the context of literature and drama. So extracting or interpreting a short story or text, and then taking that to dialogue and narration. And then the next step will be taking that to sort of picturization or storyboard. And the end result is to have some kind of like an animated interpretation or maybe like a meditation on the original source. It's so hard to describe what it means, but I think I'm just going to have fun with it. Use the acting, kind of use the theater, and use this sort of idea of drawing characters from text, stuff like that, and then also just being curious and asking students for what they want.
With the impact of COVID, with tourism being the main driving force of why Thai people would want to learn English, has it been harder to, are there just less teaching opportunities or less standard teaching opportunities out there at the moment?
Really hard to gauge. I do know this. I know this, that I hear all the time that they have a serious shortage of English, like native English speakers, because they just are not here, and it's sort of a bit of an ordeal to do, or it was an ordeal to do the quarantine, which went away, and now it's back, right? I think they need more native English speakers.
I have a theory, perhaps half-baked and more hopeful than anything, given that we work in the TESOL industry. I have a feeling there's just this bottleneck, and once we get past the pandemic in one way or another, it's just going to explode. We're just going to have so many people wanting to teach, so many people wanting to learn. I just think it's going to be this big thing where, we've been kept away from each other, not being able to communicate, and it's just going to explode. I don't know if you get a sense of that maybe in Bangkok.
You know what? I do. And actually, I've got to commend you for saying that, because I seriously believe that, since I've turned inward this year and spent the year about learning what's really important, hopefully. One thing I know is words become things, thoughts become words, words become things. So keep that thought going, definitely. Put it out there, visualize it, and the fact that you said it now already will make a difference, right? But you're right. I believe that seeing that explosion at the end, that sounds great. Some days I'm like, oh my God, I'm just terrified and anxiety and that sort of thing. But I read on a bag somewhere, you're supposed to do something scary every day. So I got that covered.
It's pretty much like just the levels of difficulty are just multiplied. You've taken your first year of teaching fully, which is the hardest year. I don't know, maybe Alex will disagree, but for me, first year of teaching is the roughest. And then you put it on a pandemic and other things. Yeah. Just, it's commendable that you stuck with it, and hopefully things will only get better, I'm sure.
I mean, somehow if I can fake my way through a couple of the personal challenges, if I can fake my way through maybe the financial challenge of running out of money or not, hopefully that's not going to happen. I can probably wade through it somehow. But it's great to be here because, I think that's where inspiration comes from, and that's where you learn about, your true self. It's the most exciting time of my life.
Yeah, you talked about that in your blog, how travel has always been, or has long been, an important part of sort of your process of self-discovery and, revitalization when you're feeling like you're in a slump. So has that always been something you found out early on, that you had this passion for travel?
Yeah, it's almost a passion for perspective, because if you're not careful, one can get caught in sort of self-enclosed energy and then not see from a sort of more bird's eye point of view. For me, this is my experience, that I get locked into that enclosed energy, and then I'm like, I can't do anything. I'm stuck. Oh my God, I'm not moving forward. And so perspective travel, however you find that, is pretty important for me anyways. Even if, for example, a couple of times back in Vancouver, I went skydiving, and those were amazing moments, because it didn't take that far traveling, but to go and jump out of a plane at 12,000 feet, and then come down and go, wow, my problems aren't so bad after all. Yeah. Life is so tenuous, and you could see the ball of the earth and the fact that this all shouldn't really be happening. This is just a ball of water, and we're just kind of somehow surviving. I don't know.
If I could steer the podcast onto one of our favorite topics, seeing as you are in Bangkok, I guess the first question is there still a lot of street food out there to eat?
Oh, yeah. Sure there is. There is.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, sure there is. Yeah. During the lockdown earlier last year, or it was a few months ago now, it became more challenging. I mean, it was still out there, but a lot of it we had to order on Grab, and a lot of the stores would close early. So, boy, was it hard. Sometimes everything closed at 7:00, and it's sort of like, oh, okay, now we can't eat anything, right? And that was emotionally challenging, right? But then they opened up again, and it would be wise to be cautious about make sure it's pretty clean. Depends where you are. But
Have you picked up any new favorites?
Oh, I think I've eaten just about everything. In fact, I've kind of lost track. Coton plat. I like coton plat a lot. I've gone on a bit of a non-spicy direction right now because it's a bit irritating for my stomach. But also, I like tom-tom a lot. Tom-tom. And there's on Christmas Day, we had just about 4 or 5 people from this condo that, mostly the maids and everyone came up here, and we ate somtam. We had 5 different kinds of somtam. So it was
And what about exercise? Are you still able to get out on your boards?
We've had a week, about 10 days off again. Pete actually fell and had a bit of a bruised knee. And then he's got finals and exams, and this is like this major overload this week. So we've been stuck inside. This is like day 3 of being stuck inside. We haven't gone out at all. But he taught 7 courses last semester.
So, Brian, before we let you go, we do like to ask kind of a big final question of our guests. And normally I ask a very general question, but just something that you kept saying is just stuck in my head, and I just want to hear more about it. You kept mentioning how you stay grounded.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to know, maybe just give us some advice. How do you stay grounded?
Okay. For me, I've over the years, like in my life, I've always tried to practice some kind of self-improvement of whatever. And that's evolved over time, evolved. Tried yoga. I've tried all sorts of things. But meditation for me started maybe 30 years ago, and various kinds of meditation, including really Zen meditation, but Chan meditation. Also, I studied that. Now I practice something in between. It's sort of like a version of basically a Buddhist chant that I learned from a Thai monk here in Thailand. So it's the same concept of stillness. But for me, I find that even when I was doing Vipassana, stillness is one thing, and you can achieve it by sitting there for hours. But for me, like actually adding chanting to it means I can get this deeper trance much more quickly, and I can feel more a sort of cleansing and vibration through my whole body. I kind of need to be a little more active. So that's what I do in the mornings. And also that way I'm using my voice, right? So I'm using the voice to try and open energy pathways or chakras. And then I just combined all the various teachings, even some I've learned online. For example, I took a workshop on angels and spirit guides. And there's a couple of little exercises I've incorporated about being open to spirit, being open to asking questions out loud, or it's almost like stating intentions. Whether or not there's anyone to receive it, that's irrelevant. What you're doing is you're activating and you're actualizing something by stating it out loud, right? So I find it works like a charm. Oh my God, this is amazing, right? To actually ask for something out loud and be really specific about it. And so that's been helping. So gradually, I think bit by bit, for me, I'm sort of got a mishmash of different influences. But anyway, some kind of practice every day.
Wow. Okay. I thought I was going to get something good from that last question, and you knocked out the park. Thank you so much, Brian.
Oh man, you guys are so great.
Brian, thank you so much for speaking to us today. It certainly will not be the last time, for sure. Great. And best of luck to you, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thanks. Well, my thoughts and my prayers are going out to all of you in Canada and all around the world to hang in there. And I believe all of this will end up with us, like you say. We'll remember the lessons we've learned, and we'll step into a new world. We just have to hang in there.
So I just want to say a big thank you again to Brian for taking the time to speak to us today. Alex, did you get your positivity tips that you were looking for?
Yeah, I did. And I really liked your positive prognostication for the future of the industry. And Brian really liked that idea.
Yeah, I was surprised. I'm not usually the sunshine type of person. So.
Sounded like he was just waiting for someone to say something like that.
Yeah. There we go. After all that, I'm the one bringing the positivity, but that's good. Because I really think so. I really think it's going to happen. It's going to be exciting. Can you tell us a bit about what's going on in the world with your JPS update?
Sure. Yeah. Back to reality here. So we were talking to Brian today about teaching in Thailand. And we've talked before about how Thailand and Korea have both been really bright points, popular ESL markets that have remained open to foreign teachers throughout the pandemic. So that's been really great news. But one sort of, this is sort of more of an advisory, I guess, notice than a JPS update, is that the application process is taking longer, especially for Korea. It's taking much longer, almost twice as long as previously, but it's also taking a bit longer for Thailand as well. So some of the delays are due to getting your documents authenticated. The authentication processes have just been slowed due to the pandemic. And also visa office, embassy and consular services have also been slowed due to the pandemic. So basically, we're just recommending starting your applications well in advance, up to 6 to 8 months in advance for Korea, if you want to be really well prepared, and at least 3 to 4 months in advance for Thailand. And getting your university degree authenticated well in advance is a really good idea. There's one caveat: a criminal record check has to be done within 6 months. So that's the update for this week.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Alex. Before we go, I do have some exciting news for the Teaching Abroad pod. The next episode, coming out at the end of January, we're going to do an Olympic special. It's going to be a good one.
Back on sports.
Back on sports. The true direction of this podcast. So thanks again to you, Alex, for joining us today. Thanks again to Brian for his wonderful, inspiring conversation. And thank you to you, listener, for tuning into the Teaching Abroad pod. We'll be releasing new episodes every other Wednesday. So be sure to check those out. You can find them on Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, pretty much everywhere. If you have some ideas you'd like us to discuss, send them along on social media, Oxford Seminars at Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Failing that, you can email us directly at teachingabroadpod@oxfordseminars.com. Have a wonderful day.